All right. All right, welcome. We'll get going. We're a minute or two past 9, and I got the signal from Nada back there. So uh, here we go. Our August resident monthly update. For those that don't know me, I'm Sean Bluebaum. I'm our senior project manager for Sundt. I've met a lot of you, but I see some new faces today. So looking forward to giving you guys our monthly presentation. So brought with me today two others. I'll let them introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get into the agenda.
Ladies first.
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name's Heidi Cretion. I'm currently an intern for the summer here at Royal Oaks with Sundt.
And can't follow that up, but my name is Todd Ganter. I'm the senior project superintendent over both Inspirata Pointe and Vita Center projects. So Sean and I work side by side managing both projects.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So we'll hear more from Heidi in a second. So as always, I like to show the rendering of what we're building as far as Inspirato is concerned and what it currently looks like. So this is what the plans show as far as the rendering, and what it currently looks like is right there. So you can see we have all the structures completed. We have the envelope on most of the buildings and windows, and roofing on all but the last wing of the 4-story building, and that's taking place right now. You can see all the roofing loaded up on the top there. So starting to look like the picture. So as always, we start every meeting at Sundt with a safety share to try to keep that part of our job at the front of mind. No project's more important than everybody going home safe every day. So we always try to start with that. And then we'll get into our project overview and update, some current photos, talk about upcoming work, and then any questions and answers you guys might have. And feel free to raise your hand during the presentation and ask any questions that come to mind as well. So with that, Heidi has a safety share for us.
Alrighty, so I know last month we talked with you guys about monsoons and the safety hazards that those could bring. And so this month I wanted to dig in a little deeper with you guys about a specific hazard that presents itself with rain, and that is a slip hazard. So up here we have a few photos of examples on site that could be considered slip hazards. So up on the top we have our scaffolding, and it's hard to tell with the picture, but recently after the rain, you could see that it had water dripping off of it. So that's something that we need to make sure that our workers are cautious of. So if they are planning on doing any sort of scaffolding work, we can limit it to make sure that they're not going to be slipping on the ladders and potentially falling from heights. We also have a lot over at the Vita Center as well with mud. So the mud is something that not only people can slip on, but equipment as well. So that's something to be cautious of. And here we see one of our members of the team, Jacob. He was working in this little area here, and you can see with the boots covered in mud, especially where he's going to be having to climb up that ladder, it's a slip hazard that we need to make sure he's cautious of and he can plan accordingly for.
Sorry, Heidi, but Jacob, who came and talked to you a few months ago,
Jacob.
tall Jacob, talked to you about picking out trees and things like that. I think he got stuck for a bit there. I'm in the mud. So this picture, you can see he's kind of laughing in the picture as he's trying to get his feet out of there. So.
But yeah, so those are just a few that we have some examples of on our site specifically. Some other examples that could be slip hazards are poor weather conditions that we've mentioned, spills on site, both water and oil, because oil can be slippery and harder to clean up. Poor lighting conditions, especially in areas like the garage where we have temporary lighting and stuff. We've got to make sure that people can see where they're going so they don't slip and fall. And then finally, making sure that any areas where they aren't level, we're marking that so people are aware of them.
Perfect.
So the fact that we know that these hazards are present means that we should be proactive about them and make sure that nobody has to slip and fall before we do something about it. Some ways that we can be proactive and prevent these slips is to make sure that we practice relentless housekeeping, as seen in that bottom photo. So that's over at Inspirata Pointe, and that's at the entrance of our site. And so we were making sure that we were keeping up with that flooding that was going on and not tracking anything out and making sure that our vehicles are safe to come in and out of sight. We can also make sure that we're clearing paths of any other obstacles, placing signage and making sure people are aware if we aren't able to clear the hazard or if we're in the process of working on it, making sure people are wearing proper footwear with good traction and grip on the bottom so they're not slipping and falling. And something that's really important to remember too is to take smaller steps and make sure that your feet are planted well before you continue walking onto your next step.
All right, any questions, thoughts, comments on that? We don't think about it a lot in Arizona because it doesn't rain very often, but it is really important. So,
And always walk with your hands out of your pockets, because if you do fall, then you can catch yourself.
yeah, to make sure all of our new pavement and all of our new grades drain properly.
Spoken like a civil engineer. Oh, Cardi. Same thing.
Good. All right. So now that Heidi has presented a little bit on safety, as we usually do, is we've asked her to tell you guys a little bit about herself and who she is and where she comes from and all her role on the team. So go to it, Heidi.
Alrighty, so I know I mentioned before that I'm an intern. Currently, I'm a senior at ASU, and I only have one semester left, so I'm wicked close to finishing. But originally, I'm from Massachusetts, so up in the corner there, you can see a picture of my family back home. And then I like to consider the bottom photo, I joke around that it's my second family. It's my roommates here in Arizona. So I like to make sure I come home safe to them every day, and then make sure I can come home safe to my family back during the holidays when I go visit. In the middle here, we can see that's what I'll look like out on site if you see me around. It's a great look. And that picture right there is actually one of the lakes that I like to go visit a lot when I go home. And so I grew up fishing there with my dad, so that's something I like to do. And then to keep the outdoorsy theme going, me and my roommates love to go up north and do camping when it's not too hot out. Something I didn't realize is that you're not allowed to have fires here because we're not restricted back home, but it's still great to see the mountains and the views. And then the final slide I have right here to let you get to know me a little bit better is I'm heavily involved in our Advancing Women in Construction program at ASU. And so that's a picture of me and all the other women who are involved in the organization. And I love to go back and be a part of that, so that's why I work safe.
Perfect.
Nice.
Excellent. Great job. Heidi's been interning for us in our office while she's going to school, and will continue that during her last semester. So her internship at the job site completes in a week, but her internship with Sundt does not, and hopefully a full-time employee in her future. So she's done a great job for us out here. So thank you, Heidi.
I'm from Middleborough. If you know where Cape Cod, I was gonna say, enough said.
All right. So let's get into the project overview and update. I'll give it over to Todd to give a little bit of a narrative during our drone shots. Now, last month, Todd had to be, holy cow. Is it this thing? Last month, Todd had to be the fastest man in 3 minutes with the drone video, so hopefully I'll figure out how to pause it this month.
Did you practice that since last month?
Sure.
That means no. Yeah, I guess we'll find out, won't we? It'll be a surprise to all of us. All right. So this is the south elevation of the 4-story building D. And as we take off here, we're going to continue on the south side going east. Here's the bridge that gets us into building E. You can see that we've got scaffolding around the outside, roofing's on. Glenn did a great job of drone speed this month. I don't have to talk 90 miles an hour. So as we round the east face of building building E here. This is the north face. The garage is below us. You can see we're gearing up to start a roofing installation on the north wing of building D. Again, another view. Right below us is the courtyard on the bottom of the screen. You'll see some good pictures of that coming up. This is building C just below us in the lower right-hand corner. This is the interior portion between the D wings. And then this is building C, the west elevation of it. We've got all the scaffolding removed. We still have some screen wall to go on around the parapet or up top for hide the mechanical equipment that's set up there. There's the bridge between C and now coming over to B. Again, all of our mechanical equipment set up there. We're gearing up to frame those or complete the sheeting on the screen walls. This is also building B. This is the south elevation. We should be turning that building white here in the near future with paint. There's a tile guy on the third floor balcony there laying tile. The fun building, building G, F and G. You can see our roofing work is about 99% complete there. And then as we spin around the east face, there's the ramp down to the garage. So I think Glenn's going to fly right over. Yeah, there's one of the water features outside of the fun building there where the shade's at. We're starting to install tile, and that's the excavation for the pool or for the equipment system. So we're doing a lot of the interior courtyard work right now, doing some planters, brick walls and or block walls, and getting geared up for some site work operations happening. So
Good work. I didn't even have to pause it.
nice, excellent.
Is this still?
It's a good thing we practiced 0 times
I know.
yesterday.
Is this still? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So that is the Inspirata drone. We'll go through some still shot pictures and let you digest that a little bit more. But we have the Vita Center drone video as well next.
All right, so on the left-hand side is 99th Avenue. Right now, a lot of our operations are going through and doing the underground utilities, which is why there's lots of heavy equipment around. But we did, since last month, put the storm tanks in. They've been backfilled. And then, again, there's the building itself. We're doing some utility tie-ins. That's the sanitary that we just flew over. And we're starting to begin the preparation for slab-on-grade work. Around the rest of campus, for those of you that were working behind your homes, I'm sorry that we're disturbing y'all, but we're having to put the water loop connection in that goes around parallel to 99th Avenue, and then it turns west and runs parallel to Royal Oak Road there. So a couple of weeks we'll be all done, backfilled, and getting ready to pressure test. We'll probably have a few potholes laying around for us to do our chlorination and tie-in stuff, but we're trying to be as clean as dirt work can allow us to be clean with. It's a kind of an oxymoron, but that's what we live in this business. Put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. So pretty soon we'll be putting it all back. But that's what's happening over at Vita Center.
Perfect.
And
One thing at Vita, and we'll talk about it more in the little still shot, but you are going to see us, so far to date, we've basically just been at ground level with everything, utilities and the pool pit and things like that, but we are going to start to go vertical pretty soon. We're slated to have most of our steel start arriving here towards the end of August. So it's been being fabricated over the last few months, and it's going to start showing up. So you'll start seeing the building go up a little bit. All right. So let's look at some progress photos. Again, raise your hand and if you got any questions along the way. Here is our month over month. It's June and August, but it's really July to August because we have a June 28th photo and an August 2nd photo. So a little bit more difficult to see the progress because we're inside the buildings, right? But you definitely can see the roof.
yeah, from the outside you can see we call this the donut. Not too many times you get a square donut in this world, but we've got one here at Royal Oaks. We call this the donut. We went ahead and put the metal decking around that. And then since then we've didn't have a loaded roof system. Now the roof is loaded, and there's tube steel posts up there for screen wall. And then this is building G. In the past, building G did not have a roof system on it. So it took a long time to do those roof systems, but they're small and they're intricate, which means they're slow. A lot of detail work, and it's not big, wide open production spaces. So a lot of work has taken place by covering the breezeway here that wasn't covered last month or tail end of June. So big progress by us getting this closed in and dried in. That's our last portion of roofing system over building north wing of D, that we've got to do on the project.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. When will we be 100% roofed, Todd, there with D?
If
roughly?
it stops raining, I could tell you. But we're having to fight the weather. The reason why I give such a vague answer is because every day it rains, the wood gets wet. We got to let the wood dry out before we can go ahead and put the roofing system back in. So for every day it rains, we either lose the rain day plus 1 day, or depending upon how much rain there is, it could be up to 2 days for a total of 3-day loss. So, sorry? Oh, yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Then it's
right.
monsoon and it rains again. You're absolutely correct. So we're looking at being mostly, in our terms of construction, dried in probably about 2 to 2.5 weeks. So although I love the monsoons, if it could rain everywhere in Sun City except Inspirata Pointe for the next month, that's going to be my request of Mother Nature. So.
All right. Any questions on that? All right. Let's get into some more photos.
Excellent. So you can see we've removed the scaffolding. This is the north face and then the west face of building C. Everything's painted. We've done our primer and 2 coats of paint. You can see that we've done, it's real small stuff, but it's hidden because you never see it from the aerial, and most people don't see it when we drive by, but the underside of these ceilings is now complete. It's not yellow anymore up there. I promise you we made it white, just like the rest of the building. But those are done. Obviously we're starting to put on, you can see around the top, we've been putting on the metal parapet cap to kind of dress that top feature up and make the complete building watertight. So as you can see, we haven't gotten to the coping that goes there yet, but the folks are working their way around the building. So that's what building C looks like right now.
One thing I was going to point out is that little red truck over there. That's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a truck of insulation. Insulation is something you rarely think about. It has become extremely hard to come by. There's lots of reasons for that, but there's a lot of insulation going on in those buildings right now. That's a big focus.
Yep. Yes. Is it all bat insulation? The answer is yes, it is all bat insulation. Yep, for those that haven't been here before that ask about what kind of insulation assembly, so the exterior walls are all 2x6, they're full filled. The demising walls between the units are full filled insulation. The walls interior to each unit are insulated, and then the ceiling cavity, whether there's a floor above you or there's a roof above you, those cavities are complete full filled of insulation. So it's for both thermal and acoustics, especially thermal on the top side, and then acoustics on the lower levels. And then a lot of our wall assemblies have an element called resilient channels. So the sheetrock is not directly screwed to the wood studs on corridor walls or party walls between units or the ceiling. They're attached to these metal channels, and the design behind it is it's called STC, which is a sound transmission coefficient. What that's designed to do is supposed to reduce the vibration and make the assembly more sound deadening from one space to another. Yes, sir. So on the upper level floors, the height, the question was what is the depth between the ceiling space and the roof at buildings? They vary, Jerry, so I can't be exactly accurate and everywhere because the top chord of the roof systems slope. They range anywhere from I think like 26 inches all the way up to like 34, maybe a little bit greater in some areas, but they're well above 2 feet of insulation that's just packed full. So we have to go through and all of our processes with the county is that regardless if it's in the horizontal plane, which would be ceilings or roof spaces or wall spaces, the county has to come through and inspect our installation of our insulation. That's a tough one to say.
Right there.
Thanks for being patient. But yeah, so they have to come out and observe our installation process because it's one of the requirements. Part of the code in Maricopa County is if you are within 5 miles of a flight line, which you guys all hear Luke Air Force Base, there are special provisions that are required for sound deadening for the exterior walls, which is why they've gone through and made these walls so beefy. And that helps keep the sound down and keep it quieter inside the units. But the caveat to that is the county has to come out and make sure that we're doing our job correct. So.
Yeah. I think we had a picture of that next.
Oh, did I just segue it?
No.
Ta-da!
Boom.
Look at that. So this is interior to a unit. So this may be a family room to dining room, or to maybe a den, or another bedroom. But this is all inside one unit. So things we can point out here is our initial process is we screw this sheetrock layer to the metal RC channels I was talking about. Above that is insulation. Then we go through and we fire tape this, and then the mechanical trades come in and they put in the AC units that are in the cavity space there. Those, for those that have been on tours or seen pictures, we've got, oh, here they are, as a matter of fact. Actually, we've got big mechanical access doors here. And then we go through and we start roughing in. The yellow is all the electrical for can lights that's in those ceilings. So then we go through and do another inspection process, and then we get ready to close up, which is what we're doing right now in the first floor of C. So this picture goes ahead and shows that we're installing patio tile and exterior patios. It happens to be a ground floor unit in Building C. Building C is just about done with tile installation, and they're going to be moving over to Building B here soon.
Yeah, one thing that I think is really interesting, and I haven't seen this much attention to it before, but the county here in Maricopa, they are inspecting not just that our walls are insulated and yeah, that's enough and all that. They're actually looking and saying, okay, you've got 2 inches that you didn't get all the way to the top there. Stuff that too, right? They're looking at every cavity and making sure every cavity is 100% full, all the way top to bottom, side to side, which is great, and more detail than most municipalities give when it comes to something like insulation. So.
Probably a lot more than you wanted to learn about insulation,
Right?
wasn't it? Look at that, all for free $99 today.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. The question is does the insulation settle with time? Due to the fact that it is a full fill thickness of the cavity from front to back face of stud, it will not. In the upper ceiling and roof cavities, those things are packed so full to begin with, and then you've got the resilient channel and the sheetrock that holds it in place. So there's a small, I'm sure there's probably an engineer that's been through mechanical engineering design that says he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's going to be some settlement. There always will be.
Maybe even here they can.
Yeah, right. I would assume there would be, and I hope
Yeah.
they pull me aside later and correct me. But there is some sort of mathematical calculation that involves for some settlement over time. It's just gravity will never stop, and if it does, we're all in trouble. So, good question.
Any other questions on this? Because this is a great picture. Heidi took it, and it really shows the status of where those buildings are. If you were in either B, C, D, or E, you're seeing some form of this going on right now at all buildings. So,
Perfect.
no, all right.
Not that exciting. It is, Tom.
I think it's exciting.
We're getting there. All right, so this is the south elevation of Building D. We've still got some glass here on the ground that will, excuse me, make its way over to Building E. We've gone through and painted it, and then we're working our way around the corner. We've been fighting the rain because we can't paint a wet wall because it just washes right off. So we're struggling with that as well, but we're making our way. And then in the near future, when you guys drive by on Santa Fe, over the next few weeks, you'll start seeing the scaffolding being removed on the south side of Building D. Oh, I missed this picture. Good Lord. This is a really, when you guys walk down the finished corridors at the end of the day, you guys are walking from a friend's house or over into your unit, you'll never see any of this stuff because it's all hidden by a beautiful ceiling. But there's a lot of mechanical systems. So we've got the copper is the domestic cold water, the domestic hot water, and the hot water return because it's on a circulating system that puts it back down to the basement and reheats it. You'll always have hot water from the front door of your unit is hot right there. So you don't have to wait if you're in the back bedroom, or back bathroom, you don't have to turn the water on for 20 minutes and wait for it to run all the way down the hallway because it's right there at the hallway. Yes, sir.
Why do you use copper rather than PEX?
Great question. The question is, why do we use copper in lieu of PEX? The answer is we use both. So we use copper down this because it's stronger for the amount of water that goes through it. You think about the volume of water that goes through in an individual unit basis versus the amount of gallons that are run through a corridor. And our specifications just called for this to be copper in the corridors. I would bet that if money was no object for Royal Oaks or any owner across the valley, that copper would be in every space because all engineers like copper. But the PEX that's inside the units is an outstanding product. It can wear super high temperatures. It can weather frost conditions. It's very expansive. It's very flexible and it's pretty easy to put in. But it is a cost-saving element. So that doesn't mean that we're providing a less superior product. It's just that there's an opportunity for us to provide a system that goes ahead and meets the needs of what everybody needs. They need water at their faucet, and how it gets there. There's some ways to do it for more cost-effective methods. But the corridor is a situation where the design team has chosen to go with copper. Yes, sir. Some people do believe PEX is better than copper. That's true. It does. It's got its pros and cons depending upon the alkalinity of the water. I don't disagree. We have fire line going through here, and then we've also got these are the line sets. These line sets are the refrigerant piping that provides cool refrigerant to your specific unit, which is where you get your AC from, part of the AC air conditioning system. Did I miss any system in here, Sean? Oh, the electric line that's running through there. So that's the secondary electric that comes out of the main electric room in each building, and it goes to each individual unit. Each individual unit has a full panel in it, and that line right there is what feeds the electrical service to your unit.
You get the CPVC for the fire. That's the only one, as long as you're getting them all.
Oh yeah. Well, oh yeah, fire line main, and then this is we call it the service because it heads off the main into each individual unit to service that unit.
Perfect. Good work.
Thanks. Been memorizing it. Excuse me?
The hot water returning and either going or coming is not, pipe is not insulated.
The statement was the hot water supply and return is not insulated. At this moment, it is not insulated, but it is our requirement to insulate it. We just have not tested that floor. We cannot insulate until we've gone through and pressure tested. Counties observed it. We have proven to them there's no leaks, and then we go through and insulate.
That will be covered with this bats, is that how it will be insulated?
No, it will not. It'll be covered with actual pipe insulation, depending upon
Yeah.
the diameter. You're welcome. All right. So this is the south elevation. On the left-hand side, you can see the edge of the bridge there. This is Building E. Thanks, Vanna.
I'm trying.
And so you can see we've started putting windows in on the first floor. This scaffolding has been a slower process. Usually we've been able to scaffold a building within probably 4 or 5 days. It's taken about double that because we have to take it down off of Building C, move it across the site, and then re-erect it. So we only have so much scaffolding. We call it equipment, right? You can only make so many parts and pieces out of it. So we have as much scaffolding as the subcontractor is allowed to bring out to the job site because he has other projects going. And we've made this agreement with him how we were going to basically leapfrog the scaffolding around. So there's a lot of methodology to how we're building our plan. So the scaffolding that is erecting all of C is coming off of Building B, or Building C. Building B will be coming down in the near future, and that will help facilitate the north wing of D, and so will the elements that are coming off of the south wing of D will also take care of the north wing of D. We're kind of just flopping stuff around. So.
Perfect. It's a good point. This is whether it's this project or any project you're driving down the road or you're looking at, equipment rotation is a big part of what we do, right? Everybody doesn't have enough equipment to have every area going at once. So you've seen it with the roofer, you're seeing it with the scaffold, you'll see, and the stucco, you'll see it with the painter. It's a big part of the coordination effort out here and in all projects. And if you drive down the 101, there's plenty of them to look at, and you can see them in various stages. The same thing.
So this happens to be Building E. Way in the background here is Building A2. This is Building B, and then over here through the studs, you can barely pick up the fun building. But this is a view that I think is pretty important because last month and the month before, we were talking about how we were being compromised with our sheetrock allocations. The sheetrock manufacturers were only sending so much to distributors, local distributors. And part of the problem that we've had has been able to get all that we need. You know, we could, when we finally started getting the allocation the material that we wanted, we were getting the equivalency of like 4.5 to 5 semi-loads of sheetrock a week. and we were only down to about 1 a week. So think about how that kind of really kind of, can slow the plan up a little bit. So the purpose of this picture is to show you that, hey, woohoo, something has turned around in our favor for once. Sheetrock allocations have been, what's the term, basically released. So we can get as much sheetrock as we need now. And so we've gone ahead, and we didn't know if there's ever going to be a shortage again. We don't want to play that game. So I'm a conservative guy, and if I can get it, possession is 9/10 of the law. So I'm going to get as much stuff as I can here, so we've got it.
Which is a side note, totally counter to how things have gone prior to the last couple of years, right? Right. The typical way to do it would be what they call just-in-time delivery, where you're trying to coordinate, your deliveries with your materials, so you don't have all this stuff stacked all over the place. People can climb on, walk on, potentially damage things like that. In the past couple of years, with all of this never-ending supply chain and material issues that seem to rotate from one material to the next, we now try to get it all and just store it, right? Like toilet paper, we want it all. and so that's what we've been doing. Like I say, we're past the drywall, at least for that type. There's other types of drywall that are still allocated. We seem to have ours. Now we're on to insulation shortages and who knows what's coming next. But it is interesting that our approach is totally different than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
When we originally estimated and scheduled the project, we would have had this pile of sheetrock in this room at this stage. This is the amount that would be needed for what the term we use, pre-rock, which is the very top layer in the areas where there's drop ceilings. Because why would we put this much product in the way of the guys that haven't put in all the outlets and ran everything overhead? But unfortunately, we didn't have that luxury. So we had to go ahead and change our game plan and take what we could get when we could get it, and work with our subcontractors to say, sorry, this isn't originally the way you guys had it figured, but we're going to have to be smarter and figure out a different way to look at the cube and make sure we can get our results. What do we have next? Ooh, the bar.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we are putting the finish coats of stucco on right now. We'll let that cure out for 4 to 6 days, depending upon what the pH system of the system comes out. And then we'll go ahead and start painting this building as well. Great news here. I forgot to mention if it popped up in any other picture, but that's called our service entrance section, our SES. This is where power from APS comes in. The meter sits in the left side of that cabinet. And the good news is that we did way back when, for those that have been dealing with us for 2 years, you know that we did a whole big primary reroute through the middle of campus back in, started October of 2020, and we ran through like January, February-ish. Well, part of that was done in order to facilitate the main infrastructure that we did here at Royal Oaks, Inspirata Pointe. And we started that underground back in May of 2021. So we've had all this conduit in the ground for months and months and months. And this last week, APS came out and they pulled in what's known as the primary. So everything that comes from the switching cabinets that resides in the southwest corner of Inspirata Pointe makes a big loop around the whole campus. So APS and their subcontractor came and pulled all the primary service from the switching cabinets to the multiple transformers that we've got set up around the project. From those transformers, it goes ahead and feeds underground into what's known as the secondary. The secondary comes from a transformer that's kind of off screen right here, comes underground and feeds this. The importance of that is that we have power to every single building right now, which is great. We have water to most buildings, and that's the next thing we're working on. And we'll talk about that in upcoming work. But it's a great milestone to be where we're at and have power for buildings that are even in an unfinished condition like this. We've got power downstairs in the garage waiting for us. Yes, great question. Is that the garage? Yes, this is the ramp down into the garage. That's correct. Lots of space.
Yeah.
All right.
Todd touched on real quick, he touched on the pH. So just broad brush, nothing gets painted until our pH readings are to a certain quality standard so that we don't have issues down the line. So the stucco basically has to cure to a certain level before it's covered.
Yeah, the alkalinity so you take a bag mix that is dry, you add water to it, so you're basically making like liquid cement. It gets blown on or troweled on the building, or blown and troweled, depending upon which step we're in. And then, just like all concrete type elements or cementitious elements, it has to cure out. When it cures out, pH comes out of the system. And so we go through and we wet the walls down to help cure and dry and cure the process more slowly. While the concrete's curing, it's basically effervescing, which is bringing all the alkali from inside the system, inside the assembly, out to the face, and it gets washed off in the rain. So we go through and we do 2 tests. We do a phenolphthalein test, which is a liquid that we put on there, and it tells us if we're within a certain range. And if we're within that certain range, we're good to paint, but that's not good enough for us. We want to know exactly what the pH is. So there's a pH pencil. Looks like a big fat crayon. You go up there on the wall, you spray it down with distilled water, put this marker on there, this crayon on there, and then you hold it up to a color chart, and it'll tell you exactly what the pH is, the acid or base. So we have to be no higher than a 13 pH, which is the upper limit that we can go to, and what our products that we apply for both primer and paint will allow, all the way down to a 5, but we won't ever get to a 5. So, but the good news is the one great thing that comes out of this humid weather and this hot humid weather is that when we did the villas, our cure time for both A1 and A2 was sitting somewhere in the 12 to 14 day cure time from when we would finish the application, start our watering and curing process. Now we're down to between 3 and 6 days on this system. So it is very, I mean, you can tell it's all chemical-based reactions. It all has to do with temperature and moisture. And we have high temperatures and a fair amount of moisture we're putting on there to cure it. Therefore, we're getting the pH down quick, and we're able to kind of pick some things up compared to what the struggles we have when it's cooler months out, because we were doing this in like February timeframe.
Yeah. So long story short, rain enough to cure the stucco fast, and then stop raining so we can paint.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
All right, the fun building. So this happens to be a view from inside elevated dining. This is the south elevation of it. Back behind in this dark hole here will be a window into the kitchen. So inside there is our hood. And then this happens.
And don't forget wine racks, right?
They didn't read between the lines when it said the fun building. That's where the booze is
Yeah,
at.
that's
yes.
where the booze goes on
Yeah,
either side of
yeah.
that window.
This happens to be a view from casual dining. In this view, you can see we've got the hoods installed already. And then this nice little nook here is waiting for the delivery in late September of our pizza oven. So wood-fired pizza oven goes in that location.
Yeah, so we're getting, at this building, we're getting to the point where we're passing a lot of our final rough-in inspections, and we're drywalling and putting in equipment, right? So this building, if you think of it, all of these, as you mentioned, sir, all of these, if you think of it like you got to get the bones and the infrastructure in first, and then you put on all the pretty stuff, right?
Almost to the
We're
makeup.
almost to the pretty stuff in this building. So it's exciting. Speaking of non-pretty stuff.
Yeah. So someday when we're all done, there's going to be 3 beautiful water features that are in the middle of campus between buildings C and D, and between it's bordered by, on the east end, building F, and on the west end by building C. And all of that water has to get cleaned, purified, and everything else. So if anybody's ever had a pool, you know, you've got your sand filter and your pump and all that stuff. All of those components are 5 feet below this elevation, and this is 9 feet below here. So all of that's in a vault down below ground. So it took a fair amount of coordination, because typically when we go through and do an excavation, we do the layback on our soil in such a safe fashion, because the type of soil that we have, that we would have this big wide excavation. We couldn't do that here because we got 2 existing buildings. So we did a straight excavation, shored it, installed this vault. We had to go through and drill all the holes for the suction and return lines for both that and then the chlorination, breather pipes, drains, et cetera, all kinds of elements that go into putting all the stuff that you would have normally next to a pool on grade is all hidden and out of sight. So this happens to be the vault lid. This will be right at about finished grade, maybe 2 inches above. This happens to be the east face of building B. The fun building is right over in this location.
And this just for scale is just a few feet,
Yeah.
5 feet-ish.
This scaffold jack is like 5 feet, and there's like probably 3 feet there. Back off in the distance, you can barely see it. There's a bottom of it right there. There's a driveway. That's A2. So give you kind of an idea of where that thing sits.
So those pipes come out of there, and they head this way.
They run south.
Yeah, this way, clearly.
Yes.
And then they turn the corner.
They don't run this way.
Right, and they go here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they come like this and all through here, and they feed these water features.
Correct. So thanks, Sean. There's a water feature here. There's two more that you can look as hard as you want. You won't see them because we haven't built them yet, but I've got a good vision. I can see them. They're all right there, and they look beautiful.
Yep.
But they're coming up in the near future. We're trying to get that work scheduled for Building C. Building C is,
Right
we're
here.
standing in,
We're
we're actually
standing
standing on the balcony of Building C looking to
Yep.
the east. Yeah, so this
Yep.
is F and G, the donut. This is the north face of Building D, the 4-story. And this is Building B, the 3-story.
And this,
There will be 3 water
Yeah.
features in there.
so this is the smallest one. This one right here is blown up right there.
Oh, there it is. Sure
Right.
enough. You
And
can
it's
actually
being-
even see, we even put water in it.
Yeah, it's
We did a water test on it, just because why would we go through and build something, tile it, and then it leaks on us? That doesn't look really good on our behalf, so let's test things beforehand. So that's what this is. This is an interim picture of the test process in operation. Yes, ma'am? How much water will that use? That's a solid question. I'm going to have to look that up. It's not a lot of surface, so obviously it depends upon the relative humidity, but it's not nearly as much as a pool would. But I'll have to. Oh, that's a great question. I'm
a good
going to
question.
ask the pool designer about that. How much water will that thing use?
Generally, in the
month.
summertime here, you figure you're going to lose about an inch every 24 hours, right? So I would assume that all these, I just don't know the size of them, but they'll lose about that during the summer, less than that in the winter, and then refill themselves. I just don't know. This one is pretty good size, the big one in the middle.
Yeah,
But
great question.
telling her to look that up.
No, I just told her to write it down because I'll
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
The good news is, you can see in the picture, the water's not, squirting out the side, so
Yeah, it's
we're
holding
in good
it, yeah.
shape. Yeah.
All
Vita.
right. So,
It's all Vita.
oh, yeah. I was looking for Vita. So this happens to be the sanitary, both the base and the manhole that the sanitary water, we're over in Vita Center now, folks, just in case I switch gears because I was caught off guard. We're over here now. And then we talked about how we're doing all this underground construction. This is the stuff that Heidi was part of the crew of, going ahead and digging and installing. But here's the sanitary sewer manhole that ties into the existing line. So this is just south of the trash enclosure for the Friendship House. Over on this side that would be 99th Avenue. This is the domestic water line that is the loop that's going around the Vita Center. If the camera angle was out a little bit further, the Vita Center building would be to the right of this picture. And then in the very southwest corner of the job site happens to be these 3 massive 10-foot diameter tanks. So to give a kind of a scale of these things, they are 10 foot in diameter. You're only seeing about the top 3 feet. And then I think they're 56 feet long. And we've got 3 feet in between them. But to give it more scale, that the bottom of this, or this what would be known as the rim elevation, is 4.5 to 5 feet below existing grade out here. So we were super deep there. And it was, kind of more of a dangerous type construction because we couldn't, again, lay this back because there's a 12,470 volt line back there from APS. That's what feeds the campus here. So we had to be cognizant of that and not lay our soil back into it. So we dug a vertical excavation. Somebody that is very safety-minded would go, that doesn't look legal. Well, we did everything legal. We had shoring out here at the time, and we never put people in a hole that was not safe. But at this time, it has a tendency to look like it might not be safe, but we didn't have folks in it, and we were in the process of backfilling it. So there's nobody down in it. There's no need for the shoring to be in there.
Yeah, it's covered up now, but
And it's all gone now.
Essentially, we had trench shoring in an L shape, so we could sort of work and shore at the same time until all 3 tanks were in. And now these guys are standing there looking safely 6+ feet away from that.
If somebody asks, why are these tanks so big for the little tiny Vita Center? That's another great question that I knew some engineer was going to come up with. The drainage happens to be, so this is the road that is on the south side of Friendship House. Friendship House happens to be out here in no man's land. The water from campus runs from west to east, and therefore, in order to, a lot of the water would head through a drainage pipe out underground, underneath 99th Avenue, and it would tie into the channel of the ditch that's in between north and southbound lanes. Well, we don't have the luxury of having that channel be able to run through here, plus we also had to pick up the volume of not only part of campus, but the roof space that the Vita Center has created, plus future expansion for Royal Oaks. So that's why this was such a massive component, is that it's picking up lots of surface drainage that before wasn't calculated. It ran to different retention areas and things of the sort.
So what you'll see is that then ties into a series of dry wells and things of that nature. So dry wells are mid-August.
This month?
Still this month, yeah. We've been waiting, that's something we've been waiting several months on. Normally we would put those in first and then put the tank in and tie it all together. We're kind of going in reverse order because dry wells were several months out. So now what you're gonna see is those being punched in, if you will. You'll see a drill rig. They'll drill those down and put those in and then tie back into this system.
Interesting tidbit, if anybody knows where Casa Grande is at, that's where these tanks are fabricated. So we went down and did a tour, we as in Angel and some other folks. They get flat coiled steel and they make it, they run it through a series of dies to make it corrugated, and then they roll them in big shapes and they make the tanks right here in Arizona. So local product, which is why we changed our construction sequence, because we were able to get local materials faster that were produced here. Which is why Sean is talking about how we had to normally do the dry wells first, but since the dry wells were booked out so in advance, we reversed our order. So.
Yeah, I should have put a couple of those pictures in here.
Oh, yeah, those would be cool. We'll show those next month. Yes, sir, you had a question. Oh. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. The question was, is what's the purpose of these? So these are storm retention tanks. So as we get a deluge of rain, these things are designed to fill up and hold with volume with a smaller orifice or an outlet that ties into a dry well. A dry well goes into a two-chambered system. First chamber is the interceptor. The interceptor filters out all the sediment. The second chamber ties into what's called as the river run, or the SGC, the sand gravel cobble mix, which ties into the underground aquifer. So we go through, let the sediment come out of it. The water goes over 25 feet to another catch basin, and then it goes right down into very porous, very aggregate type material, and it goes back underground. So none of the water that comes out of these tanks hits 99th Avenue, the channel, or even New River out here, parallel to the 101 at all.
And you have this on the Inspirata side as well. It's just been covered and built long ago, but we have 205 feet of it, I want to say, somewhere in that.
208, but close enough.
208, okay.
You're
208 feet, forgive me, on the far west side over, way over on the property line, essentially, running north-south.
Underneath the road there.
Yep.
You're welcome. All right.
All right. So that's the drone shot of Vita Center. I think the focus here is, like I said, we're going to be coming up vertical a little bit pretty soon. You can see these tanks are already buried and backfilled and gone. You will start to see some masonry coming up here, and you'll start to see steel over here. It does look like we're going to do what they call slick lining the concrete. So you have a choice with your concrete slabs. You can place it before you go vertical or after you go vertical. And so we are choosing in this building to go or after we go vertical is likely. That's based on, we're still under concrete allocations, and it's based on manpower. And it doesn't really matter as long as your underground is in prior to the concrete, right? So we have all our underground in, we're ready to go. The concrete folks are out there. Concrete folks, it's Sundt. We're out there grading, and you'll see the pad get nice and flat, covered with AB, which is our underlayment, and it will then sit as a nice, hard, flat surface, and then we'll go vertical and then come in with the concrete later. With a big asterisk, unless they call tomorrow and say, we can place your concrete next week, and then we'll do that next week. But it looks like it's going to be later.
Perfect.
Okay, this is the slide I show every month, And for those of you who have been here several times, it's a little bit different. We've got in progress on all the buildings. Why is that? That's because we are anticipating a slight delay with some of the dates that we showed up there earlier, whether it's because of insulation or other reasons. We're trying to work through that right now. So I know Todd's been working feverishly with the other superintendents and our team to really identify what those dates are, but we didn't want to stand up here and show the same dates when we've realized we're a little bit behind on those, and we anticipate some delay. So that's why those say in progress. We will get those worked out in the next near future and get this slide updated.
Yes, sir.
We just hear that in November and March, those are not good dates, somewhat later than that, is that what I'm saying?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's an outline of the area of underground parking relative to the other buildings?
The question is what is the outline of the parking in relation to the other buildings? Take all these buildings, B, C, D, and F and G, and it about cuts them in half. It runs halfway underneath underneath B, halfway underneath C, halfway under D north. Here's the ramp to it, so it comes back to this corner, jogs around, cuts partway through building F and G, and then back this direction. So which is why this is, normally everybody's like, how come Sundt's taking so long? It's because we had to go down 15 feet first, build an entire building, and then put 3 feet of dirt out of it before we put more buildings on top of it. So, good
Yes, sir.
question.
Is there an elevator to the parking area from each individual residential building?
The question is there elevators from each individual resident building to the parking garage? Yes, there are. So there is one in building B, it sits right about here. There's one in building C, it sits right off the bridge here. And then building D, it sits right about here. Yep. There's another elevator for back of house staff, Royal Oak staff from F building down to the garage for their storage needs. So therefore nobody will see what's going on between the delivery and food product. So yes, sir, Jerry. So the question was, did Sundt have any more conversations with the water supply, which is EPCOR, about the water? No, I haven't. I have not. I'm working on putting a plan together for once we go through and do the site work operations. So, which means it's curb and gutter and paving. I really want to get myself into a position where we have a lot of hard surface to run water out on, and then I'm going to go and discuss with both Sun City Fire and EPCOR the need for us to go through and flush those systems out. But I got to get to a point where if they said, yeah, go do it now, I'm not ready now. So, but as soon as we get closer to those elements, I will. So, you're welcome.
Do you have another question, Jerry?
The question is when are we going to start working on the road going around? That's a great segue to the upcoming work here. So this cul-de-sac work, I've been working with Darren and Facilities about putting together a letter about what's going to be happening here. My plan tomorrow is to go through and sort of spray out. If you guys see a bunch of white paint on the ground, that's me being the graffiti artist that I am. I'm going to go start marking limits of construction. The answer to your question, Jerry, is that we'll start going through and being able to, the second week in August is when we're going to do some saw cutting and some demolition. And then the third week in August is when we're going to start doing the mass earthwork coming this direction around buildings E and D, and then up along the side of C and tied into phase one. There's also, where this verbiage is at, there's a sidewalk that we have to do. So if anybody lives in the garden homes that are on the south side of the north cul-de-sac or the north side of the south cul-de-sac, we're going to be in your backyard here in about September time. Just coming to say hi. We're going to put a concrete sidewalk in, give everybody a few more feet of walking path. And then we'll start taking our overall site work and bringing it this direction. And then we've got sidewalks that need to happen later on, probably in the October time frame around the north side of B and the west side of C. You're welcome.
All right.
All right.
Just slide is in here just to continue on with that topic of what's upcoming work-wise. So Todd, walk them through
Perfect.
what we got.
Upcoming work-wise, we'll start alphabetically. B, by next time we meet, it'll be painted, the scaffolding will be coming down. We'll have screen walls, we'll continue sheeting, and then, so that'll close up those elements there. We will go through and have more courtyard work. There's some masonry walls that we're working on in here. Building D North, this will be fully roofed. And then the scaffolding that comes off of B will complete the north side of building E, and the scaffolding that's around the south leg of D, along with a balance of the scaffolding coming off of B, will take care of the north wing of D. So the scaffolding will be gone here, and it'll be fully erected here and here. So therefore, we'll be working on the outside skins, which means windows, stucco system, which is the foam, the waterproofing Tyvek paper. Next time we meet, we will have done some work up in this area here. We will start getting out all the storage that's along the fence line out, and we'll start making some modifications.
Sounds like it.
Hello? I'm back. Ta-da! So we've got some excavations that need to happen. If anybody remembers the excavation that we put in here for retention, we have another one that goes at this location here, and we'll start bringing the road work around the side of the building and coming towards the west. So that's what's going to be happening. Don't change the slide yet. We got a photographer here. So that's kind of the big things you'll see from the outside of what's happening. On the insides, we're in full game production sheetrock in building C. By next month, we'll be in full game production sheetrock in building B, and then we'll therefore be doing cabinets in here as well. And then a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, rough in all three sections of what we call the C buildings, which is D North, D South, and building E for all y'alls. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What are you going to do when the people in A and B, or B and C, start having to park their cars in the garage and run?
Great question. Good question. So the question is what are we going to do when we open up buildings B and C down in the parking garage for everybody? I think we've shown before, directly below these buildings in this corner is a gigantic temporary warehouse we've made. It's air-conditioned space so we could receive all the cabinets for the entire project. That space will be becoming smaller. We'll also we will have to go through and commission to make sure that when these buildings come online, that number one, the elevators are working, the fire alarms are working, as well as all the fire alarm and fire suppression systems down in the garage as well. There are two gigantic exhaust fans. They're 7 feet tall. They sit here, and they pull out the exhaust gases out of the garage. Those things will have to be up and running and balanced as part of the turnover for those buildings, but also for the turnover for the garage. And as well as the mechanical spaces down there and the commissioning of the water heating and water softening systems that are there as well.
Yeah,
So the answer to your question, I'm sorry I gave you a totally lengthy answer, but we do have plans in place to make sure that part of the parking garage is turned over. There's no need for the entire garage because between both these buildings, there's technically 41 units. We will probably have every bit of the half of the garage, which would be 71 parking stalls at minimum would be available. So we have enough to satisfy the county code requirements for having the parking required for the residents that will be moving in. And then as we start getting buildings D and E completed, we'll be peeling more of the casework out and therefore shrinking up our storage space down there. But yes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is a lot of the store. There's a lot of materials down there. There's a ton of casework and cabinets down there. Well, 41 units of that are going to be in those buildings then, right? And quite honestly, we're going to be starting them over in these buildings too. So a lot of that material will be out of there. And then, as Todd said, we only need to open a portion of the garage to satisfy the 41 units.
So if taking it one step further, for anybody that has any questions about how the phase turnover is going to work, is that we will probably have to go through and cordon off some of the garage. That'll be kind of our space. That'll be construction worker space. So we'll put a temporary fence down there and signage that says, please don't hop the fence. This is for authorized personnel only.
We have Heidi down there. The last part of your internship, you can stand guard.
And then we'll have a fencing system that will run partway through the courtyard, and we'll isolate off building D and E. And then, so therefore, you'll be able to get all around buildings C and B with the hardscape and the site work. It's just we'll have to fence this off because I don't know if we'll have all of this done by November. I'd like to. That's really my plan. I'd love to get the exterior done by then, but I don't know if I will. Yes, sir. The entrance to the garage in this picture, great question. It is right here. This is the concrete ramp that comes off the south cul-de-sac into the garage. Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Yes, the question is will the charging stations, I just had the same conversation with the electrician yesterday. I was asking him where his product is at. Is it in town? He's got it in his warehouse in South Phoenix. The charging stations will be in and up and operational for when folks move into buildings B and C. Good questions. Awesome.
Any others? I know we're at time, so but if anybody has any questions, feel free. Otherwise, you can always reach out to Gretchen or send a note. You have anything on the text? Nobody called in or anything? All
Nobody's
right.
paying attention to us today.
All right.
Hurt my one last feeling.
Well, with that, thank you very much.